All right, I'm going to show you the placement of the outside border. So I've got my outside border out, and here's my placement diagram, which I have copied with my Sharpie so that it's dark enough that I can see through it. And I can actually see through it when I place it on my ironing surface here, but I know that the cameras can't pick it up. So I'm going to show you, just in case you can't see through yours, another method so that you can do it by just looking at the placement diagram to be able to eyeball it accurately. And this is kind of some stuff that you've learned before, but we're going to put, okay, I can see that I have a stem right there. So let me get my apple glue out here. And I've got, these pieces are already cut to size because the pattern tells you what size to cut what length to cut them. And on these, I do have a straight seam right here. See that? And I'm going to tuck the end of this underneath. So I'm just going to leave a 1/4 inch or so hanging out. And this is too tall, but I'll trim it off as I add the pieces, okay? So I'm going to undo a little bit of that seam when I'm stitching and just tuck that end inside there. So I won't do that right now, but I'll just leave that little flag hanging down, the seam allowance. Okay, so I placed that. Now I'm going to place the next piece. I think it is this shape, yep, this size. So I can see that I've got a piece that needs to go right here, and these stems are numbered, stem 1, stem 2, stem 3, and it will tell you what size to cut those. So just pay attention to that. And the way I'm going to do it is just, let me slide this on so that my whole area is onto my ironing surface. I can see by looking at my placement diagram, I didn't darken this area, but this is the adjoining block with these scallops in the blue. So I can see that I want this piece to start here in the center and curve around until it comes to the center of this block. Now let me do something that's kind of wrong. So okay, that's pretty ugly, so I want to straighten that out and make a nice smooth curve. And I want the end of it to end, let's see, how deep do I want it? I want it down here by the end of this middle blue piece, okay? So I'm going to have it end about right there. So I'm going to put a little bit more of a nice gentle curve. I think I'll have it go up a little higher, right down to there. Oh, that's prettier. Okay. I think I'll just kind of adjust that curve until I'm happy with it. And then I'll trim this end off. Okay, and now it's the shape that I want, so I can easily turn my piece over and apply my glue. Little dot every inch or so, and try to keep it in the center of your applique piece so that you don't have to sew through it. Okay, and we'll start over here. And this goes underneath a leaf, so I'm not concerned about the end. I can see that there's a leaf that's going to cover up that end, so I'm not concerned about this tag here. Okay, and I'll lift this end and put that down there. Okay, so eventually I'll have a yo-yo. This is the wrong color, but there'll be a yo-yo that goes right there. Just cover the end up. Okay, then the next piece is this one that comes out of this pot at the bottom. It's not part of the main basket. It's down in its own little pot. And it comes up here, it crosses over the corner of this blue thing I can see on my placement diagram. And when you're looking at a placement diagram, you can often eyeball it because you can use the seam allowances that are shown on the diagram as reference points. So I can see that it comes up here, crosses through that seam, crosses over that seam, and over to this point. So I start here in the center with a little bit of a seam allowance. Head up this way. Boy, my steamer is steaming today. I just put fresh water in my iron, so it's really going to it now. I have to tell you an iron story. One day I was, oh, look how good that looks. Okay, now here's what I want to check for. I want to check that the top of this curve is about the same height on both of these. So I'm going to move that up. Then I would glue that in place, okay? And so I'll go ahead and glue it in place while I tell you this story. One day I have a handicapped son. His name is Jordan. We call him Jojo. And Jojo functions at about a 2 or 3 year old level, and he's an absolute delight. He's just a funny boy. He's nonverbal, but he loves people and he loves parties, and he's always trying to do something helpful. And it's usually not very helpful, like when he prunes my bushes and things. But anyway, one day I'm working in my sewing room, and I'm just having the happiest time because it smells so good in there. And I'm just thinking, oh wow, what is that? It just, oh, and you know how sometimes you're aware of something but not? So I'm sewing, and it didn't occur to me that why does it smell like that in here? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, it smells like cotton candy in here. And you know how I love sweets. And I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. But why does it smell like cotton candy? And I keep working, and then I started smelling burnt sugar. And so we see how we have the same kind of curve. I'm just eyeballing the placement diagram, but I'm getting the same height and the same shape. And then I've got the last two little pieces. I didn't draw them on this because I ran out of paper, but I can see on this quilt behind me that they start a little bit below. I can see exactly where they're going to go. I'm just going to tuck this in and start making that curve. Anyway, so this smell of cotton candy. I look over and my iron is steaming like crazy. I go over and look, it starts bubbling and is all black. Jordan has filled my iron with Sprite. And it does smell lovely to start with, but it makes a big mess in your iron. And I wouldn't suggest using an iron that's been filled with Sprite, because it makes your quilts really sticky. So that's one of my experiences with JoJo. And there are many, let me tell you. That's kind of why I have a sense of humor, because you couldn't live with him if you didn't, honestly. He also filled my husband's lawnmower one day with Clorox. That wasn't a good thing either. He's just trying to be helpful. Okay, here we go. All right, and then I'll trim that off. Maybe I'll trim it now. I've got it in the right place. So on this, the point is, when I'm doing this by hand, is that the first time I lay it out, I'm going to eyeball it, and to get it to where I'm happy with it, I think I want this to come down a little bit more, because then it'll have the right curve. Oh, look how cute that is. Yeah, that's a little better. And so that I'm happy with the curves. And then I can do the method that I showed you on that one block. Let me press this down. Where in order to duplicate this very same curve, because I've got to do the very same curve here, I'm going to place this bias tape right on top of the piece underneath it that I'm trying to duplicate, and just follow along using it as a pattern. Whew, hot. And this one's not quite long enough, this piece, because I guess I picked up the wrong piece. Boy, this iron is really working. Maybe it was mad at me for telling that story. Who knows? Because I threw away his cousin. Okay. And then that can be moved over here, and it'll have the right curve and the right shape. If you're trying to duplicate this very same shape on the other side, it's going to be a mirror image. So when you form those pieces, you will place your bias tape onto the piece that you're trying to duplicate with the folds up. So the wrong side up. And this you have to be a little bit more careful so that you don't unfold the folds. Okay. Move this around. There we go. Perfect. So I have a perfect mirror image now. I'm going to wait until that cools off so that it won't lose shape when I pick it up, and then it's ready to be placed on the other side. So once I have all of my vines placed, then I'll place my yo-yos, my pieces that go, this little leaf goes here, and all of the rest of the pieces that we've made in the applique section to complete this block. I know you're going to love this. I can't wait for you to finish your quilt so that you can show me a picture. And you're ready to get stitching on this, so it's time to get busy.